This short video is about the development of early modern English. By the time Shakespeare is writing and is a prominent author, we are well into the early modern English, and he introduces many new words and phrases because as he's writing for plays, if there is not a word available for what he wants to express, he simply makes it up. He's considered well known in higher class circles in society at this time and is supported by the royalty of Queen Elizabeth. Later, King James takes over, and after a short stint of closing the theaters and not supporting theater, Shakespeare is one of the reasons the theaters reopen, because he does some historical plays that flatter King Richard. So theater becomes in vogue again as Shakespeare resumes his power in the language. At this time, English is very flowery for people who are not peasants, and most of the literature you'll read from the early English period is this flowery language. So while it seems that we're reading some other kind of English, it's actually regular modern English. However, no one during this time would say anything in 10 words when you could say it in 50, which is why we have this poem over here, "Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day?" that takes a lot of time and words to say, "You're really awesome." It would be an insult just to tell someone that you love them without giving a vivid description and why. Early modern English continues to develop, and about 1450 movable type printing press is invented, and slowly but surely it becomes more affordable and the technology becomes better, and books are now becoming available to many people. A hand copy book was very expensive, so to now get one that's published and mass printed is much better. And in 1611, right around the death of Shakespeare, the first English translation of the Bible, a King James Bible, brings to our language new phrases and the use of heavy use of analogies in that sense. Because the Bible is well read and it's discussed at church, many people are church-going folk who speak English. This ends up being a very important factor in the integration into our language. Science also becomes more acceptable and credible during this time. We, of course, have Columbus's discovery now of what we thought was a new trade route to India, but we know that the world is not flat and we're not going to fall off, and little by little Newton comes along and we start to accept the rules of gravity. And, of course, that really changes the language and adds to the language as well, because there's body parts and functions of scientific discoveries. Additionally, the English during this time begins to colonize different places in the world and begins to start what they call the British Empire, Australia and America, and we pick up these foreign words that come into our language, and a lot of the Native American words and the Native Australian words come into our language. New dialects and forms arise because, as you can see, we have a vast amount of differences in where people are occupied who speak English, so many different dialects and forms arise. And in 1746, Samuel Johnson attempts to standardize spelling and pronunciation, the most common words, with his English dictionary. Some of those definitions are very clever to read. They're not as straightforward as our definitions today. One of Samuel Johnson's famous definitions is for oats. He says, for a Scotsman, it's breakfast, but for the English person, it's a food for horses. Definite insult to the Scotsmen at this time. By 1800, enough changes have taken place in the English language that we now move away from this early modern English title, and we now go into what's now called modern English. You'll watch a couple short videos on development and history of language, and you're going to watch a short video on dialect during Shakespeare's time.